The Honourable Member Eugenie Sage. Tēnā koe, Ms Sage.
Tēnā koe, Mr Chair, thank you. Vote for Environment for 2014-15 totals over $313 million. 61% of that relates to MFE's climate change responsibilities, and my colleague Kennedy Graham will comment on that. But 39% of the vote is for other aspects of environmental management, and a significant chunk of that covers fresh water. The Ministry for the Environment gets $14 million to provide advice and implement tools for water management. Mr Chair, we live in a country that is shaped by more than 18,000 kilometres of rivers. Some of them are deep and swift. Others of them, like the Waimakariri, have wide beds that spread into many strands on the plains. Some, like the Tarawera, start in lakes, and others have their headwaters in the snowfields of the Southern Alps. New Zealanders love our rivers. They inspire us with their beauty and power as places to go fishing, kayaking, as a source of kai, or for their own sake. 9 high-profile New Zealanders, including musicians Tika Tāne, Maisie Reka, artist Graham Sidney, photographer Craig Potton and comedian Michelle Court, and 2,000 other New Zealanders have signed an open letter to the Environment Minister calling on her to get tough on water pollution. New Zealanders want the Minister and her ministry to introduce strong standards to protect water quality and reduce the pollution load that intensive land use puts on our rivers. And I understand tomorrow that the Minister will release the Government's final decisions on the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. That National Policy Statement, or the NPS, is the major policy document under the Resource Management Act, which influences how our rivers, streams, lakes and aquifers are managed and how councils control land use that affects water quality. But National has no plan for clean rivers. Under this Minister and this National Government, the Ministry for the Environment has proposed weak national bottom lines for water quality, which will allow more water pollution. We've got high limits on pollutants such as nitrogen and faecal coliform. Why? So that irrigation and dairy intensification can continue to expand. Mr Finlayson is interjecting, but Mr Finlayson, last November when National released the proposed changes to the NPS, they were widely criticised. Fish and Game said the national bottom lines for water quality would allow New Zealand rivers to become some of the most polluted in the OECD. It described them as an abject failure, which in their words legitimised the worst farm nitrate pollution we have in New Zealand now, and allowed water pollution to increase 5 to 15 times over current levels. And it wasn't just the Fish and Game, it was also the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment. She said that the National Objectives Framework didn't go far enough to address the most widespread, pervasive and immediate pressure, rapidly increasing nutrient loads from land use change. Mr Chair, in the last 5 years, the amount of irrigated land in New Zealand has increased by an area the size of Lakes Taupo and Te Anau combined. An extra 60,000 hectares in Canterbury have been irrigated, covering an area the size of Lake Taupo. The Parliamentary Commissioner, Parliament's environmental watchdog, wants the government to increase the measures in the National Policy Statement so that regional councils regulate land use change to prevent more nutrient leaching, more faecal contamination and more water pollution. But National prioritises irrigation development, intensive land use over clean rivers that are clean enough to swim in. Mr Chair, there's no limit to the novel food products and the jobs we can create if we use our intelligence, if we focus on research and development, and if we add value to the milk we currently produce. But there is a limit on the number of dairy cows that we can put on the land. The Green Party recognises this, National doesn't. And in areas like Lake Taupo, we have reached that limit. Mr Chair, more than 90% of the 7,000 submitters on the government's proposed changes to the National Policy Statement called for a health standard which ensured that rivers were clean enough to swim in. The Green Party would introduce standards that provided that. When the Minister announces her changes tomorrow, I would love to see a change in that standard to ensure that our rivers are clean enough to swim in. But given that National prioritises irrigation, I doubt that we'll see that.
Mr Chairman.
I call the Honourable Minister Amy Adams.
Mr Chairman, it's a great privilege to take a call on vote environment in the estimate